A continuación, la Asamblea escuchará un discurso de la excelentísima señora Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović, presidenta de la República de Croacia. Ruego a protocolo que acompañe a su excelencia. En nombre de la Asamblea General, tengo el honor de dar la bienvenida a las Naciones Unidas a la excelentísima señora Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović, presidenta de la República de Croacia, a quien invito a dirigirse a la Asamblea.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Madam President, we live in times of great opportunities and serious challenges. We are more interconnected than ever, yet the world remains divided in many ways. Technological developments have enabled our world to truly become a global village. Our citizens have become global citizens and are well-informed and strongly driven by developments around the world. They expect global leadership in these times of rapid changes and great complexity and look for inspiration in all of us. What is it that people are looking for today? What is it that they expect of us as leaders? Mighty words? Well, they don't really matter much anymore. Mighty deeds? Yes, indeed. But foremost, what they expect of us are the simplest of gestures that bring us together, that show our compassion and respect for each other. They expect integrity and inspiration. This summer, of all things, football triggered a global response, uniting us for a moment in our common aspirations for excellence. After the success of the Croatian national team, I have received so many congratulatory letters and messages from all corners of the world, from China and Australia and Saudi Arabia, from France to Trinidad and Tobago and Nepal, and I thank everyone for their kind words. Team Croatia really played well. They won our hearts, kindly said Vishal Bagale of India, and Shabir Alam wrote in Croatian, Svi kao jedno. We are all like one. Gilberto Castillo of Colombia pointed out, final muy merecida para un país que se supera como gran ejemplo después de las duras situaciones históricas vividas. Todo un ejemplo a seguir. Of Shorin Ondona, a 14-year-old girl from Dhaka, Bangladesh, was especially persistent in getting her message through. This year, the whole world has recognized a small, beautiful country, Croatia, and the power of football. Now, the world knows how powerful a small, beautiful nation can be. And this is just a fraction of the messages. And what most of them had in common, what I could read through each of them, is that Croatia, a country not big in terms of the size of its territory or the number of its population, or even its economic means, has thus become a metaphor for all of these kind people who congratulated us of what a country can do to inspire others and to arrive on top of the world, winning the hearts of people worldwide and rousing enthusiasm that each of their countries can do the same. The value of a nation is not measured by its size, underlined Bernard Stem of France. And indeed, to excel, you don't need physical size. You need heart and persistence. And above all, you need to share a vision and to work together to make it happen. It's not the size of one's territory that matters. It is the size and quality of ideas. Magnitude is not measured only in volume, but even more so in determination to reach the goal. Croatian individual players might have shown great skill and technique in the field, but the reason that they triumphed was because they played together as a team. Excellences, the United Nations is a place where we must show our willingness to act together and play together as a team. Our adversaries are many. Poverty, hunger, terrorism, extremism, and instability, lack of education, gender inequality, and exclusion of women in many societies, environmental hazards, endangered security, and trampled human dignity. And we, the leaders, should think of ourselves as a team that needs to work together, to take advantage of our strengths and to address our weaknesses in order to make our world a better place and to inspire excellence globally. We should lead not only in managing crises and solving problems, but in spreading hope and optimism as well. We must demonstrate our humanity, solidarity, and compassion. In doing so, above else, we must respect each other. Respect is the most valuable asset that we have in interpersonal and international relations. It is our responsibility as UN member states to maintain the relevance, the effectiveness, and the efficacy and the efficiency of our organization, and to be up to the task for whatever challenge that may arise in front of us. However, raising awareness of the most pressing issues is not enough. We must also push for the adoption of the necessary instruments and frameworks, and most of all, secure their implementation. Without such an approach, this podium will remain a self-serving global stage. Just words without deeds. Through the years, we have learned, often the hard way, that governments and international organizations alike have their limits. This has also taught us of the value and importance of inclusiveness and of the important role that the private sector, academia, civil society, and brilliant individuals can have in many different fields. Croatia has many a Luka Modric, and not only in sports. Our people excel in so many areas. Marin Soljacic, who is a modern-day Nikola Tesla, is developing a wireless transfer of energy. Iva Tolic, with her breakthrough work in molecular cell biology. Ivan Mrvoš, developer of smart city furniture for the cities of the future. Mate Rimac with his electric cars, to name just a few among the countless others. So let us push formal limits of our organizations away from us. Let us embrace the talent that is abundant around us. Let us inspire through science and innovation, through our brilliant individuals at home and in our well-established, hardworking diaspora around the world. Let us inspire through our dedicated and tireless work in the United Nations. Deeds, not words. Inclusion, not exclusion or isolation. Empowerment, motivation. Those are the keys to success. We are the global village, but more often than not, we tend to miss the opportunity to bring the global agenda to our homes, to our communities, and our families. Likewise, we forget to include our homes, communities, and families on the global agenda. It takes great tragedies caused by catastrophes, global crisis, wars, and climate change to remind us all of what we all stand to lose. In today's world, such an approach embodied in multilateralism is under ever-increasing strain. This is of particular concern since the most important issues for the mankind cannot be resolved by any state single-handedly or in isolation. Multilateralism is indispensable. But I would agree with those who call for changes in the multilateral system. We should not be complacent, and we need to rethink decades-old mechanisms and instruments in order to adapt them to the modern times and contemporary needs. Excellencies, as we celebrate two very important anniversaries this year, 70 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and 25 years of the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action, it is a fitting occasion to remember that respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law has always been a precondition for long-term stability, peace, and development. We should not forget the 70th anniversary of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide either. We must learn from the tragedies of Srebrenica and Rwanda, a shame for the United Nations, as described by the great Secretary General Kofi Annan, to whom I pay a special tribute today. These darkest hours must never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, this year, Croatia marked its 5th anniversary, its 5th year of the membership in the European Union. Croatia is a telling example of the transformative force of the EU membership, of the benefits of accession to the area where peace, freedom, and human dignity and prosperity are standards and not mere ideals. For these reasons, among others, Croatia strongly supports further EU enlargement to our southeastern neighborhood. Resolving all outstanding legacies of war while constructively engaging in regional cooperation and good neighborly relations is, of course, essential. Within this framework, we will continue to focus especially on the rights of minorities, on the missing persons, war crimes jurisdiction, victims of war, and domestic processing of war crimes. Good and mutually beneficial neighborly relations depend on a large degree on the words coming from across the border. For inflammatory and a revisionist rhetoric, spurred by the need for domestic political circumstances, takes just a moment to be spoken. However, to repair the damage caused takes much, much longer. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, our closest neighbor and a country of utmost importance for Croatia, we see a risk of legal uncertainty and political and institutional instability after the upcoming October elections, due to the failure to amend the constitutional or the electoral framework so that it fully respects the rights and equality of the three constituent peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina: Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs, in line with the Constitutional Court decision on the legitimate and proportionate representation of constituent peoples at all levels of government, including the presidency. And although the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue is for the two sides to resolve, we should be cautious and extremely careful when it comes to proposals with potential regional implications, most notably the ideas regarding territorial exchanges. Otherwise, we may reopen the Pandora's box of potential new territorial claims that would provoke serious instability and security threats. There are inspiring developments, though, demonstrating brave leadership as well in our own region of Southeast Europe. We warmly welcome the signing of the agreement on the name issue, which has been reached between Skopje and Athens, and we hope that the referendum this coming Sunday will represent a crucial impetus for the country's successful continuation of its Euro integration path. Ladies and gentlemen, by adopting the 2030 Agenda along with the historic Paris Agreement on climate change and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, we have sent a powerful message that there is hope for a brighter future. However, to succeed in our endeavors, we need to mobilize all partners to work together. This way, we can achieve social progress, protect the environment, create economic growth, and build a more just, stable, and peaceful world. Runaway climate change is one of the most serious threats that we regularly witness. From heat waves and forest fires no longer contained only to California or the Mediterranean, but also happening in places such as Scandinavia, to historic typhoons in Japan or in the Philippines, and the melting of ice sheets on the planet's poles. No country can shield itself from the negative effect of climate change. Croatia is no exception to that. With over 1,000 islands, islets, and reefs, and a rich history of the Mediterranean heritage, implementing goals of the 2030 Agenda now is crucial for Croatia's future. All over the world, Croatia included, we are recording changes in sea temperatures and have witnessed unprecedented and irreversible changes in ecosystems. In Croatia's beautiful Adriatic Sea, one of the cleanest in the world, we have already registered more than 20 new species of tropical fish, some of them extremely invasive, that can irreparably shift the environmental balance in the Adriatic Sea. Soon, we may be exposed to the danger of rising sea levels, which is already a question of existence for many small islands around the world. It is estimated that the sea level in the Adriatic will rise by almost half a meter by the year 2100, submerging parts of World Heritage places and treasures like Split, Trogir, or Dubrovnik. This is why climate action is not an abstract issue. It is a serious matter requiring our constant and undivided attention. One of the most important climate action and sustainable development issues for Croatia is reversing demographic trends on our islands. They are turning into places where schools are without children and where churches record and register funerals rather than baptisms and weddings. And yet, the problems that many of these islands face are common globally. We need to improve affordable transportation and connections between the islands and the mainland. We need to resolve water supply and provide clean water and sanitation. We need to invest in education, technology, science, and innovation so that societies and families will once again flourish on the islands. Blue growth could be a solution. It is a long-term strategy to support sustainable growth in the marine and maritime sectors as a whole, and seas are drivers of the economy and have great potential for innovation and growth, set to grow at twice the rate of the mainstream economy by the year 2030. Growth is especially welcome in a number of areas such as sustainable coastal tourism, new health benefits, better connectivity of islands, sustainable blue growth and jobs, marine technology, renewable energy. Managing maritime ecological threats and preserving ecosystems and biodiversity, but also improving safety and security in terms of maritime traffic and cross-border maritime pollution. One of the issues that I would like to emphasize today is, in particular, is marine litter, a problem of increasing concern that threatens marine life in all the world's oceans, impacting more than 600 marine species. The Croatian coastal areas are severely affected by poorly managed waste from our southern Adriatic neighbors. We have to address the rising problem of plastic pollution in our seas and oceans urgently if we want to leave a livable world for future generations. Plastic debris, and each year around 8 million tons of it ends up in our oceans and seas, is particularly worrying because it is resistant to environmental breakdown. Plastic pollution does not only impact sea life, it also carries toxic pollutants into the food chain, with us humans being on top of it. We can solve this problem, and we can start solving it by educating and engaging everyone in a conversation to rethink plastic, by challenging society's perception that this indestructible substance could be treated as disposable. Particular attention should be given to the Ocean Cleanup Project, and in this regard, it is designing and developing the first feasible method to rid the world's oceans of plastic in its first mission to remove 50% of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in just 5 years. That started several weeks ago. In the media, they have called it Pac-Man, referring to a popular old video game. The young man behind the invention is a brilliant scientist of Croatian origin living in the Netherlands, Bojan Šlat, and he well deserves to be given credit here today beneath the UN logo, which clearly shows our oceans. My country, Croatia, is already actively preparing for the fulfillment of its obligations under the Paris Agreement. Excellencies, this was the year of UN reforms in more ways than one, not only through results achieved in the pivotal sectors of peace and security, development, and UN management, but also in the transformational nature of our mutual efforts to make our organization fit for the 21st century. The world has changed profoundly since 1945 and the birth of the UN. In our reforms, it is essential that we strike the right balance between the maintenance of the basic framework based on the UN Charter and the flexibility required by the new realities and contemporary needs. In pursuing UN reforms, we must not lose sight of the 2030 agenda. We need a UN capable of coping with unceasing challenges and growing changes in the international arena, be it in the field of regional security, conflict management, threats to the environment, human rights, or frontline technologies that transform profoundly the fields of labor and disarmament alike. I use this opportunity to highly commend the Secretary General and his team for their tireless reform efforts. There is still a lot of work ahead of us, but we should be content with the results and trajectories established in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, if we want to move forward and leave no one behind, if we truly strive to make the UN more relevant and in doing so more effective, we also need to realize that the UN is and should be much more than just New York, Geneva, Vienna, Nairobi, or any other conference location. Multilateralism starts from our own homes and in our own minds. It must not be an annual event. It needs to be our daily routine, a way of doing business in the world. Everything that we want to achieve globally, everything that we have agreed so far under this dome will be easier to accomplish with the understanding and support of our citizens. In order to face all the adversaries and adversities that I mentioned in my speech, both as delivered as well as in the more complete version, written version that you have received in your own missions, we must show determination to take on the risk of decision-making. We must open ourselves to new ideas, and we must show emotion, empathy, and above all, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is contagious. As Nelson Mandela, Madiba, whose centenary we celebrated 2 days ago, said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Thank you very much.
En nombre de la Asamblea General, deseo dar las gracias a la excelentísima señora Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović, presidenta de la República de Croacia, por la intervención que acaba de realizar. Ruego a los representantes que permanezcan sentados mientras despedimos a la presidenta.